Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Bull. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Good evening, Wolves fans. Good morning, Wolves fans, if you're listening to this at a later day. Hope you're all doing well on the back of that defeat yesterday. We are here live on the Wolves Fancast, a part of the Sports Social Podcast Network. And if you like a little bit of a quiz, which we like to collaborate with, you can go to the website fcquiz.app. We have a weekly Wolves quiz on there every Friday that's released. Let us know how you get on. There's also many other football-related quizzes on there. It's free to play. All you need to do is register with an email. We've also got a lot of merchandise that we've released recently. You can find that at wolvesfancast.tmail.com. You can find anything from Jorgen Strand-Larsen t-shirts to Lemina vests to Cunha jumpers. Ed's got one of our Wolves Fancast shirts on. If you want to rep the Wolves Fancast, you can do so, similar to Ed. I've digressed a lot more than I should have done, because whether I want to or not, we need to talk about yesterday's 2-1 defeat at home to Newcastle. We all went into the game with a bit of optimism on the back of the draw away at Nottingham Forest. I think there was a bit of belief going into the game we could get a result against the Newcastle side, who have somehow managed to remain undefeated so far in the Premier League this season. We'll talk about the game a bit more in depth yesterday. Jeffo, when the lineups came out yesterday and you saw that Gary O'Neill had thrust Andre in from the start on the back of an international duty, what was your thoughts on that, and how did you sort of perceive the formation we were going to lay out with?
I think there was definitely a sense of excitement. I think just from that cameo against Forest, and and what we've seen through looking at YouTube videos or reels and stuff that's been posted about him, he is obviously a very talented individual, and there's a certain air of excitement around watching him play and wanting him to be part of the squad, which is fantastic. As for the lineup, it's one of those. It's difficult because what we've seen under O'Neill is a lot of fluidity, people moving throughout different positions, but on the pitch during the 90 minutes or during different phases of attacking play or defending play. So it was difficult to go with, but you could kind of see, okay, this piece was going to go here, this piece was going to go here, and it kind of played out the way it was written down. So it was a massive surprise, but welcoming really to see Andre start.
Ed, when you saw that lineup came out, what was your sort of feelings on the way that we were going to line up with? Did you think it was sort of a back four with Aït-Nouri being a bit further forward? How did you see that lineup being formatted?
Yeah, I desperately tried to try and make it a back five, because I still think in my head that's where we should be with the players we've got. But it screamed a back four to me. And just to touch on Andre, I think it's clear he came for a reason. That's because he's been talent spotted, hasn't he, as our missing piece, so to speak, in the midfield. So I think throwing him straight in made the most sense. I was excited to see in that lineup. I thought the three midfield, I thought Lemina there would be given a little bit more license to go forward, which he did. I was desperately trying to work out if it was going to be a back four and then will Andre drop and make it a back three when Semedo and Aït-Nouri go forward. But it's like Jafo just said, it's an incredibly fluid system these days. It's not 4-4-2, is it anymore? So it was interesting. What I was really looking forward to was seeing Cunha and Strand-Larsen again in person, because I genuinely think that we've got a potential for a great partnership up front with those two going forward. And that was what I was mostly excited about when I was reading this out on my phone yesterday on the way up to the ground.
What was your thoughts, Tom, on Andre making a start? Obviously, he hasn't been at the club very long. I think he only made it back to Compton sort of on Thursday. He's not really learned much about his team, the way we play as a standard from videos we've seen so far. Next to no English that he's learned so far. But was you excited at Andre starting, or did you think it might be a bit of a gamble? And you're on mute, Tom.
That would help, wouldn't it? Yeah, so I was excited. I think you can tell he's a top-level player and different gravy. Ordinarily, you give them time to bed in, right, and get used to, as you say, the system, how you're going to play, and the order of things. But there must be stuff that he's doing in training, the Brazil connection, they know each other well, you would presume. And kind of, so I was really excited in terms of the formation. When I looked at that, I mean, with Lemina, Andre João Gomez, that screams control of a midfield in the Premiership, 100%. I don't, there's very few teams. I get overexcited, but there's very few teams. I think, okay, that midfield will control the game more than we can. So that is super, super strong. And again, with what Ed just referred to, with Strand Larsen and Kuna, these are they look really good attacking players. So that midfield and attacking force really does get me excited. Again, not to go on a negative, looking at the lineup, instantly, I just start thinking, can we shut up shop in the Premiership against highly organised teams? Aït-Nouri is a gift from God in terms of what he can do on the ball. You feel like just get him on the ball as much as possible, and he can make things happen that other footballers can't make happen. But is he an out left back that we can protect? So that lineup screams control of the midfield. Good, fast attacking players, highly skilled. If they can start clicking, that is easily that midfield and strike force, I think, could easily be mid-table, pushing those Europa League places. It just boils down to Aït-Nouri's great. Again, it's like a stuck record. Are we going to be safe at the back? Because these teams know how to defend against good players. So I was a little bit excited to see us go forward, but I hope we can shut up shop. And yeah,
it's a fair comment. In regards to that comment, Tom, you made about the midfield three being a sort of a trio that sort of should dominate possession.
Yeah.
That sort of opening period yesterday, the sort of first 10, 15 minutes, we didn't really have much of a stronghold in the game, did we?
Yeah, it's probably, to be fair, mate, it's probably boiled down to what you said as well. With them starting so soon together, I always think that, yesterday, the first time you play as a trio, that should technically be the worst you should be, getting to know each other and how things operate. And the pace of the Premiership is a completely different kettle of fish, physicality, pace, etc. So it would be a steep learning curve. But with how good he looks, it looks like he's really just, he's got to be given that opportunity to start week in, week out. We didn't have the control that I expected. Maybe it's boiled down to that. But the technicality of the players, and we know João Gomez and Lemina and what their qualities are, that is an absolute solid midfielder, I think. And if we're under the cosh, that midfielder can battle, can defend, can cover, they've got legs. So I'm quite excited by it. If you wanted to pick, is there that number 10 that can kind of unlock the defence? But we saw what João Gomez can do for the goal with the little step over and that little bit of magic at times. And that's where my brain automatically thinks that's kind of where Aït-Nouri's little bit of sparkle, a little bit of magic dust, that he can maybe do something a little bit different, getting into those positions. But yeah, in terms of it, we didn't have as much control as I would thought, but it still looks, for me, a good solid midfield. It's just in that transition phase when we do lose the ball and they are well structured. But then what do we do as a defensive unit? And that's where it's, although we can get more, I'm sure we'll get onto the goals. I think that's just where, looking at that lineup, where we're going to be found out.
Yeah, great. Tom mentioned Ryan Aït-Nouri there, Ed. I know you've got your sort of concerns about a back four. Earlier on in that game, in the sort of first 10, 15 minutes, Jacob Murphy went through on goal. For me, if you look at the replays, we've talked about Ryan's defensive inadequacies a few times. For me, he should be looking to play the offside. If you have a look at the replay, the whole other line of the defence is a good 2 yards. He's let Jacob Murphy run on in. If he takes a step up, it's a blind onside. Fortunately for Ryan, Sam Johnson gets a a heavy hand on it. You can see in that picture, I thought it was in from our South Bank seat. It was Sam Johnson. You can see he's on the penalty spot when he actually makes the save. Big save at the time, but Ryan Aït-Nouri in that back four still a concern, Ed?
It is a concern for me. I think that without trying to, sort of pick on a player, I said last time I was on about he's not as protected in front of him with Bellegarde as well. It's definitely a system issue. I think he's exposed an awful lot, and it's very easy for Premier League teams, especially ones with the ability that Newcastle have and the relatively well coached setup that they have to overload on the right, and that was happening their right, and that was happening an awful lot yesterday. And I think just quickly on the midfield three, I completely agree with Tom that is a midfield three. There aren't many I'd probably change in the whole of the Premier League for, but we are a counter-attacking team, and we have been for best part of 8 years or whatever it is now. And counter-attacking teams don't have midfields that dominate. They have midfields that break up the play and set the faster players going. So I think we've got a whole system tactics change to go through at the minute, and I think that's what this is right now. This little run we're in with the really shit opening 10 games that we've got or whatever it is, but we are changing system, and we are picking players now that are going to be possession based and not João Moutinho popping it to Neves or Cody hitting it to Traoré or whatever, or Ryan Aït-Nouri going flying on the left wing. We're now trying to become this possession based team, and we are going to have gaps while we work all that out. And Dawson isn't maybe the quickest to cover, but was playing left centre back yesterday. Maybe Yerson could have swapped over and might have been better at covering, because we saw how fast he was on a couple of breaks as well that he did. So it's teething problems at the minute. Relatively positive for me, but I am still very concerned that we are pushing this back four agenda when I don't know if we're set up for it just yet.
Yeah, it's a fair comment. Thanks to everyone that's joined us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Got a comment here, Jeff. I'm going to come to you first. I think it's from a friend of a friend, Robbie Mullins Jr., I think it is. Does anyone know why Bellegarde is being chosen over the other options? Who are the other options for you, Jeffro, that could possibly start over Bellegarde? I think I don't think he did himself much favours in the away tie at Nottingham Forest before the international break. I know he scored an absolute screamer, but I felt he was bullied a lot of time during that Forest game. I felt he looked quite lightweight throughout that game against Forest, but Gary seems to be a fan of him. I know he was overly encouraging of Bellegarde last season, but who else could you have started instead of Bellegarde yesterday?
I think you've got to come back sort of full circle to what Tom and Ed have said about there's a certain evolution and revolution kind of cards with Wolves and what we're doing. It is massively is a revolution this season. It's turned its head on to this possession style football. So to kind of come to your question with that, I think the only other player who could be in there is Sarabia. He's the only one who has the ability to dribble and make those movements and make the passes. Because your other two options are Rafael Gomez, who's a fantastic footballer, but he's very young, very raw, more in the mould of a Pedro Neto. And the other option is Hwang Hee-chan, who, as we know, isn't the most complete footballer. He's a good footballer. He's good in his own respect and in certain areas of the pitch, but the option where Bellegarde is, he needs to be able to somebody who can carry the ball, somebody who can dribble well with it, make these quick plays, quick passes, and somebody who's very good with the ball at their feet. And really, you've only got Sarabia as the other option, and Sarabia has his options as well. But the only problem is then you come back to who plays left back, and it seems with hindsight's a great thing. It kind of, the sending of Hugo Bueno on loan to Feyenoord may bite us in the arse a little bit with that, unless Toti Gomez can play left back. But I think as you rightly say, Ed, I think Aït-Nouri could do that position fantastically well. But in our current situation, I think Sarabia is the only other alternative to Bellegarde. Yeah,
John Peake on Instagram says, feel like Bellegarde just needs some extra pace and he would be solid. I think he's definitely got the ball carrying ability to be useful for Wolves. I don't know who else could have played along that sort of left side, left forward. Really, I think he was playing to a degree yesterday. Hwang's been indifferent, hasn't he? In the minutes that he has gained since the summer. It looks to me like he's maybe frustrated he didn't get that move to Marseille. But I don't know the player well enough to have a proper opinion on that. Jeff, I'm going to go back to you as well for this one. How did you feel the opening sort of 10, 15 minutes of that game? Because obviously Jacob Murphy had a chance. There wasn't also another chance where Anthony Gordon absolutely rinsed Nelson Semedo and Mosquera on our right side, cutting in and managed to hit a decent effort, which clipped off the outside of the post. But how did you feel that sort of opening 10, 15 minute period went? Because for me, it seemed to be like we were allowing Newcastle to play out, to play about with it from wherever they needed to, without putting too much of a press on them. Whereas as the half grown on, we did seem to up the intensity quite a bit.
Yeah, I think if I could sum that first 15 minutes up, it would probably be under one word, and that's nervousness. And I think it comes back full circle to the fact that you've got three people in there who've never played together, as been said, as said by the two guys previously. You've got Andre, who's not played hardly any minutes in the Premier League. There is always going to be a bedding in process, even within, say, 30 minutes of a football game. They need to feel the pace of it and understand of it, because at the end of the day, Andre's played a few minutes against Nottingham Forest. You're talking about a different team here in Newcastle who play a totally different way of football. They've got some very fast attacking players who play in a much more direct way of football. So it's sort of having that, and now taking that experience of what they did well outside of that first 10 minutes and improving on how they can start a game properly. And I think sort of eradicating that nervousness is only going to come with more playing time. And they need to then trust the process. And I think we come around to what players have said and what people have said, after the game. But I think sort of trusting the process, and you can see game on game now as we're going through it, we're becoming more solid, we're becoming more regimented in what this new style of Wolves is. And I think there's got to be a little bit of patience and a little bit of understanding that players are learning this system under this new age, as it were, of Wolves. And I think that nervousness will kind of eke itself out the more games we play.
Did you feel Newcastle were in the ascendancy yet in that sort of first opening period? Like, we were under the cosh, even though like sort of Anthony Gordon had that chance which clipped the post. Did you feel like they were a goal was coming?
No. It was a hectic opening. I think Jaffo's hit the nail on the head by saying, I don't just want to keep saying that the other lads have hit the nails on the head, but that it was a nervousness I felt throughout the whole. I also felt Newcastle seemed a bit nervous and a bit that, other than Anthony Gordon sort of having a couple of good runs, I wasn't overly impressed with them from the outset. It didn't feel like that, that it was pressure was being ratcheted up. It just looked like someone needed to, as the bloke behind me was saying, just someone needs to get their foot on the ball, which is what eventually started to happen when it went in waves, with Newcastle having 10 minutes and Wolves having 10 minutes either way. But it didn't feel like the pressure was being built up. It just felt like maybe Anthony Gordon is possibly one of the better players on the pitch. Had a good run. There was, that slip of the mind from Aït-Nouri to not step up for that Jacob Murphy chance. But I didn't feel like we were under the cosh, so to speak. It just felt like someone needed to get that game by the scruff of the neck and dominated it. And that's where you'd hope, as the home team against a team which I don't think man for man were that far behind Newcastle, in all honesty. We needed someone to step up and sort of be less nervous, be a bit more controlling of the game and make a stand. It was a game yesterday for someone to come out and be the true leader in the team. And that's what I felt like we didn't see yesterday.
Yeah, I felt on the back of that, that's where sort of Andre came into his own. The longer that first half went on, there was a couple of times where he broke through Newcastle's press. I think there was one bit of area where he beat maybe Longstaff and spread it right to Semedo and broke us on the counter-attack. Did you feel sort of that Newcastle had got the upper hand on us, Tom, in that sort of opening period up until we got that goal? Because one of the main sort of things I took from the first half before we get into how Wolves went in front was how comfortable Craig Dawson handled Alexander Isak yesterday. I felt like he absolutely harassed him all over our half in that first half. Don't feel like Alexander Isak had much any half chances in recollection. But how did you feel? Sort of who was gaining the upper hand in that first half up until we went 1 ahead?
Well, I think it sums it up that he took him off at half time. So whether we've nullified him or he's had a bad day at the office, but don't get it twisted. He's a top talent. He's one of the best strikers, I think, in the Premier League. I think it was a below par Newcastle. I think when we speak, when I'm watching it, and I felt very much the same. We all know how the Chelsea game ended up. My slight concerns towards it is I felt Chelsea were there for the taking with proper structure and how open they were at the back. I thought Newcastle yesterday compared to yesteryear looked way below what I've seen them at their peak, Champions League and dominating games. So part of that reads, when you're watching it, you're thinking, arguably, are we playing better to make them look like that? But I don't think it's that. I don't think they're at the level that they have been in previous years. So I'm watching it. And even the goals that we conceded, right? And I know we're talking about the first half, but even as the game unfolded, you never, for a particular moment, thought, against Arsenal, you can tell, right? You're watching that, you're thinking, yeah, you can tell they're a better team, but that's not where we're swinging punches. But when we're in these games, it's just how these games seem to be getting away from us, and we just seem to be found out defensively in these moments. And the Premiership is a brutal, brutal league, and any of those players can produce a moment of magic. And an unguarded shot from 30 yards, which came about, will happen in the Premiership, because that's the difference between the Championship and where we're at. But in terms of the first half, felt good, felt strong, felt comfortable. Again, there was those fleeting moments that we've mentioned with Gordon getting in, and you can see that slight vulnerability. But part of you thinks, well, okay, if we can just hold out and keep that defensive shape. But again, part of my brain, and overthinking everything, thinks, well, if we go up, that gives no other option for an away team than to come at us. And as they start coming at us, if we're not set up to be counter-attacking, that ultimately you can start being found out, because they're kind of going for the throat. But for me, if a manager and an opposition manager is making 3 changes at half time, it sums up how he thinks they're performing. Maybe that's part of how we're nullifying them or we're controlling the game, but he obviously thought changes were needed. And again, probably exposed weaknesses that he's seen on the pitch. Harvey Barnes, cut in, there's a gap, keep cutting in, and things like that. So, yeah, that's ultimately, I think, where I'm at.
Right, I need to put my foot on the ball here. I need to scan, because I'm just seeing negativity left and right to me here at the moment. We're already talking about Newcastle's goal, and we haven't even had a chance to have our 5-minute period of being positive with the actual goal that we scored in the first half. Because you talked about a moment ago, Tom, about that one player having a bit of magic. I think it's Sean Longstaff in our half tries to play a bit of a 1-2 with Isak. João Gomez intercepts, breaks us towards Newcastle's half. Finds Cunha, who lays in Jurgen Strand-Larsen. You can see the top left there. He absolutely manhandles Dan Burn. João Gomez continues his run from our own half. I thought it was Cunha with the dummy. That's how, it's surprising how much distance João Gomez covered in this particular movement. Lovely dummy. And Mario Lemina is there just to slot it home before unveiling his new Wolf Hell celebration in front of the North Bank, which was quite pleasant to see and watch back after the result, because you need to take the positives at the moment. Jeffo, your thoughts on the goal from start to finish?
I think it kind of sums up exactly what we are now as wanting to be as a team, and creating these fast chances from turnovers. And I don't want to say over-attacking team, but it's a counter-attacking team, but it's making the most of having the players that we've got, and having somebody like Jurgen Strand-Larsen, who's essentially like an old-fashioned number 9 in many ways. And the fact that he was able to go physicality, as you say, and went man-to-man with Dan Burn, who is, one of the biggest defenders, if not the biggest defender in the Premier League. And then to push him away in such a way to get the ball across. But then you've got players who've got the sense of mind to step over the ball and not to shoot in a chance where they've got a lesser chance of scoring, to let the ball go through to Lemina, who's got the easy goal at the back post. It's wonderful. It's nice. It's fluid football. It's what we saw in pre-season. It's, against teams like Leipzig, against West Ham. Not so much with Crystal Palace, but in the games where we played well and we scored good goals, these fluid motions is what we saw, and this is what Gary O'Neill wants to do as a manager. He wants to make us more attractive to watch because that's what fans want. But it's also how we create chances, and that is the biggest thing is actually turning these attacks into actual goal scoring opportunities and making them maximising the goal scoring opportunity. And that's what we saw with that goal yesterday, is that we saw a chance that was allowed to go through to create a better chance. And that sort of sense and that football knowledge is starting to shine through a little bit more, which is something that we can kind of hold on to and focus on going into the next couple of games.
Most definitely. Ed, your opinions from that Billy Wright standards, that goal nestled in the back of the net.
It's right in front of us as well, so it was we had a really good view for that one. But yeah, I think seeing both Lemina and Joao Gomez in the box like that is exactly why we brought in Andre, right? They can do that, so he'll sit. And probably why, without trying to downplay his role, why he can come straight in, Andre, is because his position in the team is as old as time, isn't it? Give the ball, get the ball, give the ball, get the ball, and get the ball back. So that's what we want to see more of. Like Jafo was just saying, that we've got more than one player following into the box, because Cunha doesn't always get into the box. He does a lot of floating around, doesn't he? We've got a big number 9 up front. We're going to need people to get in and around Larson, and I thought he did really well yesterday to hold off Dan Burn, to beat him for pace, and then the wherewithal to put a very good ball in low. I didn't say anything because my 9-year-old was next to me, but the words I was thinking in my head when Joao Gomez stood over it, I didn't understand it because I hadn't seen Lemina, and he was closer to me than he is to Joao Gomez probably. And it was a great finish, and it's what we want to see, isn't it? Two extra bodies in the box, because if we are going to get away from, a counter-attacking team in the main, what we're going to need midfielders that are committed to going forwards and backwards. And what we've got in all three of those is 3 guys with incredible engines. And Lemina playing a bit more forward, and Joao Gomez as the box-to-box midfielder, a bit more of an old-fashioned midfielder, breaking up play and getting into the box. It's exactly what we wanted to see, and it was a lovely bonus because I thought we were going to go into the half 0-0.
Tom, you're going through your bulking phase at the moment, looking effortless as always. But you've got to fawn over that goal yesterday from start to finish. How quickly we turned it over. Joao Gomez having the legs to get in their box when, like I said, I thought it was Cunha because Joao Gomez has sort of intercepted the pass from Longstaff about 5 yards outside of our box, and within sort of 5 to 10 seconds we're celebrating a goal.
I thought that Joao Gomez, that's the almost, if you take that mini clip, you think don't be that good because someone's going to come in and buy you straight off that clip. It's almost one of those to win the ball back. And not just that, I don't know who he overtook. He outpaced, I can't think who the Newcastle player was, but he literally just ran past, I think was it Bruno? But anyway, just ran past him direct. The desire and the ability and the engine room, 1, to win the ball back, and then 2, to get into the box. Ed just said it perfectly. That, I've had my negative hat on, and you're right. If we take one of the positives, that shows as an attacking force what we can do. They are really, really good players. Probably that little clip epitomises everything that's good. When you say Joao Gomez winning the ball, Lemina and the engine and the ability for Joao Gomez to get into the box, Cunha and that little technical ability, Strand Larson and his power and pace and that ability to get back. So that shows in that brief moment. And to watch it was a thing of beauty. And that little bit that gets you off your seat and you're like, wow, okay, this is why I'm paying this much money for a season ticket a month with that little magic moment. So it was really, really nice to see. And I think it epitomised, if it's clicking and it's working, what it is capable of. The challenge then on the negative side is reproducing that more often. Not a goal as special as that, but if we've got that ability, how do you find yourself in those positions more often? How do you get Lemina and Gomez breaking into the box more often? And maybe, as we've said before, with the 3 playing in the middle for the first time, maybe that takes a little bit of time, but you can tell the talent and the desire and the want, it's not yesteryear when, we went on that crazy downward spiral where the players look disinterested. These players are trying, and these players are really battling, and they've got some really good quality. Just finding how to click.
I'm definitely cutting that audio piece out where you said that's what you spend your money on for your season ticket, because if Jeff hears that, prices are going up again next season, lads. Blame it on Tom. You sort of mentioned it there that, you know, João Gomez and Mario Lemina breaking into the box just before half time. Mario Lemina did have another chance just on the edge of the box, which he managed to, for me, drag woefully wide of his left foot with the goal gaping. It was a great run that he sort of went on a marauding run from our own half in the build up to it. Managed to find, I think he was looking for Cunha with a through ball when I think Bellegarde may have been the better option. You have to watch the replay back and let me know. But yeah, falls on the edge of the box, dead centre. And I thought it was, if you look at the picture on the left, I thought it was the white ball that's on the cones, which the ball boys have to put it on, but I think it went a little bit close to goal than it actually looks on that picture. But like for me, a man who's wonderfully ambidextrous with both feet, I'm hitting the target from there. And I think Mario, when he watches that back, he'll be thinking the same. But going into sort of half time, 1-0 up, one of the sort of hot takes from the half for me was just how much energy they'd put into that half. I know, like I said earlier, Newcastle sort of dominated the sort of first 10-15 minutes. But as the game went on, I thought our press worked really well. I thought every time Newcastle tried to thread a pass through our midfield or defence, there were so many times where the guys was doing slide tackle type interceptions to stop the balls going through. They busted a gut in that first half. And as Tom mentioned, just Mario Lemina and João Gomez, how much energy they exerted in that first half, going box to box. That for me is where inevitably we fell apart in the second half, because I think once it came to sort of, you know, 60th, 65th minute, before their goal started to fly in, I thought we were the better team. We had chances to make it 2-0. Strand Larsen had 2 chances hitting the post after I think Lemina had played him through. And then a few moments later, Lemina picks him out with some sort of David Beckham type cross. I think Strand Larsen, if he had the chance to take it again, he might have done a bit different. But for a guy who's, 6'4", whatever he is, I think he backs himself to score with a header, which he attempted and probably didn't get the direction on it. Another decent save by Pope. But going into sort of 60th, 65th minute, we were in the ascendancy then. These are the 5 moments that we're falling down on at the moment, aren't we, Jeffo? Because that sort of period after half time, we should have been making it 2-0. I think 2-0. I think Newcastle's heads drop and we coast to a win then.
Yeah, I think so. I think we're starting to create chances, which is good. But it's like understanding of what we can do better. And I think looking back at it and actually thinking about it with a little bit of hindsight was, okay, yeah, the substitutions didn't help the team. But it's what we were actually doing well, what we've not done well for a long time, was that Sam Johnston, for all that he did, was crazy yesterday. He found Strand Larsen's head 90% of the time. The amount of times where we win that flick on and the ball doesn't land at Bellegarde because they're not anticipating, or Cunha doesn't get the ball. It's just little finite moments like that where we could create more chances and we put more pressure. And working on these turnovers is going to give players like Mario Lemina, João Gomez, the extra 30 seconds just to get the air back in their lungs and not be under pressure so much physically to exert themselves every time that we're instead of holding the ball up, we're under the cosh again by Newcastle. And I think what you say about fine margins and small percentages is very much where we are now in terms of this team, because you look about what we're trying to do and where we're improving is that every game we've had this season, we've got a little bit better every time. And the issues that we had against Chelsea, which was the solidity at the back, kind of have improved phenomenally, because you bring Andre into this team and he gives you that out ball. And I think Ed said it beautifully earlier when he said he's somebody you can just get the ball to and move it off. His bounce passing in that game when he was on the pitch was incredible, and it was done at speed. And that the thing is, when you've got players who can do things and just the simple things so naturally with so much effortless pace, it makes everyone else's job easier. And I think going through it, and as we get these small percentages back into our game and we start taking advantage of it and they start going in our favour, is that the game is going to be easier. It's going to be so much more easier because you can see it. You can see these little changes are going to impact everything that the Wolves do. and it's going to be able to carry us through games. But it's just getting there, and it's maybe have a few more crazy moments, but two, 3 more games, you can see where Wolves are going, and that's the highlight for me. Is that we've got a positive to hold on to. It's not a negative where we can't see light at the end of the tunnel, sort of thing.
Yeah, I agree. Ed, how was your sort of feelings on the sort of the start of the second half, coming to sort of the 65th minute? I had a bit of a conversation on WhatsApp earlier, and I still haven't finalised the figures, but from what I have estimated, Sandro Tonali cost more than what all of our subs cost us to come on, and then you put Joe Willock and Harvey Barnes on top. That's sort of where we're at in the levels, isn't it? That they bring on, I think it's £130 million worth of subs they brought on directly at half time, compared to like the 5 subs that we made throughout the second half. Where was your sort of mindset up until they scored? Was you happy with the performance? What did you make to Strand Larsen overall? Could he have done better with the chances that are just shown on screen?
Yeah. That what's positive is that, without trying to sound cliched, is that he's in the right place, right? I think that's probably the positive to look at, is that he's there, he's in the box, he's where he needs to be. You know, he's where you want your number 9 to be most of the time, which is, you know, within 4 or 5 yards either side of the goalposts, and that's where we want to see him, because like we've talked about, he's a big lad, and we've got players that will find him. This is where I guess I've been relatively positive. This is where I felt my negativity kind of kicked in after about 10 minutes into the second half. We needed to make substitutions then, because Eddie Howard played his hand and Gary O'Neill was keeping his cards close to his chest. And I think we needed to fix up a little bit with a little bit more energy, because like you just talked about, the ability and the money that's spent on the lads coming on for Newcastle. I think as a consensus, I think Wolves fans think we've upgraded the squad. Maybe haven't upgraded the 11, but we've upgraded the squad. But there's levels to it, isn't there? And the amount of money that Newcastle have to spend after their season in the Champions League in particular means that they have a little bit more leeway, and they're building gradually. But like you say, bringing on Tonali, who's worth nearly all the subs bench, did you just say? Yeah. That's the difference, isn't it? That's where the difference is, and we needed to freshen it up. And I think maybe also is something for more of a general discussion, talking about people getting their breath back and, you know, taking breaks out. We need to be better at the cute stuff, the dark arts. We need to start doing what Newcastle did when they went up. All of a sudden there was people getting cramp. All of a sudden there was people with fake head injuries, giving everyone just a chance to suck in a little bit more into their lungs. I think we need to get better at that. When we were 1-0 up, we weren't at any real point other than at sort of throw-ins, trying to kill the game and kill the momentum. I think we need to get better. And hopefully more South Americans means we'll get better at that naturally. I think we need to get better at that and giving people time to, you know, jog back to their positions and then suck in the air there. But I felt we needed to make changes. Maybe 10 minutes before we did. I think we were chasing the game after that.
That seems to be an ongoing issue that I'm seeing quite a few people bring up now, is that Gary's not making his substitutions early enough. Tom, what was your sort of thoughts on how the second half fared? Should Gary have made subs earlier than he did? I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. I think, like I keep mentioning, the 65th minute. I think Newcastle scored around the 75th. It just seemed like the pressure was building. The players had sort of run on empty. We've already talked about how much effort João Gomez and Mario Lemina exerted. Mario Lemina, absolutely outstanding for that first hour, but being the wrong side of 30 now, I thought his legs went around that hour mark.
I think it probably pulls down to Gary O'Neill's mind, thinking the players are so much stronger than the players that are on the bench. And when he's the exact right moment to bring them on, you know, we've alluded to the strength that Newcastle can bring off the bench. So he's probably stuck between a rock and a hard place, and ultimately thinking, you know, for example, was it Podence that we brought, was it Podence and Guedes that we brought on against Chelsea or one of the games? It seems almost, you know, we throw on Hwang on the left flank, which is, you know, granted to him, he's a nice, you know, he's a really good finisher. So you think just get him in and around the box and get him goal poaching. You don't really want him out there. But he's probably looking at the bench thinking, well, you know, ultimately to do that, who do I take off? and then again throwing another unknown entity with Forbes. But with he can only play the cards that he's got in his pack, and ultimately he's probably looking at the bench thinking, well, I'll at least try this. Did it make us stronger? Absolutely not. But what was the alternatives is what my brain ultimately goes towards. Was Tommy Doyle on the bench yesterday?
Yeah, Tommy came
had a
on,
good
didn't he?
cameo, I thought.
They came on.
On towards the end, didn't he? But
That
just
was
said, as good as Tommy Doyle is, we lost a bit of our intensity, didn't we? It felt like we were luring Newcastle onto us a bit more in that, hoping that Tommy Doyle would sort of, play that out pass. But by that point, there seemed to be a lack of energy going forward. Maybe if he would have brought on Forbes instead of Hwang, Forbes got a bit more pace on the counter attack than what Hwang had. I still feel like Hwang's just not firing whatsoever at the moment. And Ian Grennan in the comment section says, on the conversation on subs, I just think timing killed the momentum when Newcastle were up in the pace with Barnes, Willock and Tonali. As I said, it felt like Newcastle, the goal was coming around that 60th minute mark. The legs seemed to go. I think Andre got booked maybe a few minutes before Newcastle equalised with a bit of a lash out, a slide tackle on the touchline. I think Willock basically brought a foul to a degree. I think Andre went in with a bit of momentum, but Willock saw the ball get away and threw himself to the ground. It was a moment, like I said, Andre looked like his legs had come to an end. Obviously, they've just come off the back of international duty, flying back from Brazil, got back on Thursday to then play Sunday afternoon. It's a lot of toll on the legs. I was happy with the performance up until the 60th minute, but it just felt like after that we were just running on empty and the goal was going to come, and just the manner that it did. Because for me, as much as Newcastle was sort of probing, I never felt like it felt like they were in the ascendancy, but they never felt like they was cutting us open at will or anything like that. They was getting into wide areas, they were cutting inside, but their final ball was lacking throughout. But when Fabian Schär's having to shoot from that distance in the top left-hand corner, Jeffo, it just shows that they were sort of running out of ideas. And, you can see Craig Dawson's reaction there. I think Sam Johnson comfortably saves that shot if it doesn't take the deflection, but top left-hand corner, can't get anywhere near that. And before you know, it's 1-1 and squeaky bum time happens.
Yeah, I think I described it at the time as a sickener, and it really was. It made me feel sick to my stomach because we'd done so well to that point. And I think the fatigue was only emphasised after that point because it gave Newcastle the hope to push on, that they could do something and get 3 points at the game. And I think just that one moment of, I don't want to call it brilliance because it's not brilliance, because it's just luck from Fabian Schär. He has got it in the locker to score goals like that. But the fact that he's hit a defender and gone into the corner, it's just unlucky. And we're kind of like finding ourselves now as a team kind of bemoaning moments of luck. And it's frustrating because we're doing things so well. And to have a goal scored against your team like that and be in that way is just frustrating, because it kills all of the momentum, as we've just been saying, and it makes the legs a little bit heavier. It makes that next 10 minutes a little bit harder. And that's when, obviously, it spiraled out of control and the game was just lost then. And there was no way of getting back into it. And the inevitable felt like it was coming very, very soon with what happened with Harvey Barnes. And it's frustrating, because I think if we don't concede that goal, we probably see the game out and we probably win 1-0.
Yeah, massively frustrating. I literally turned to my friend a couple of minutes after that goal went in, and it just felt like next goal was the winner. I never felt that we had another 2 goals in us regardless of what happened, but they just had so much more energy. It felt like a FIFA Ultimate Team game at times. Just like they had that much more pace and acceleration to everything that they were doing, and we just looked empty on our feet. And the subs for me weren't the ones I would have gone for, but we're working on hindsight here doing this episode now. Tom, how frustrating was it for you with that first goal? Should Craig Dawson should he be backing his goalkeeper, or do you not knock him for wanting to get his head on it?
Nah, I can't. You can't put. I don't think you can put.
That's the type of defender he is, isn't he?
Yeah,
I think on paper you should be backing your goalkeeper to not get beaten from there, but I'd be annoyed if I saw Craig Dawson duck from that distance.
Yeah, and I think he's got such a split-second decision to make. And if that's, if you're put your body on the line, you want to get in the way of the ball. Arguably, if he dodges his head out the way and it ended up flying in the back of the net because the keeper was expecting him to block it, kind of situation. How frustrating was it? I think we summed it up. I think we summed it up really, really perfectly. The positives are some of the, probably let's take the start of the game. It's almost like that. And then the subs happen. We've gone like that decline. And I think Jafo summed it up perfectly. It's almost like they smelt blood, and it comes to 1-1. And I think that sometimes that's a frustrating thing. I thought they did the darts. What was frustrating is just that little bit of intelligence, playing the dark arts, killing the game time, giving those could those players that have busted a gut in the first half have an extra 10 minutes fresher if we can slow the game down, let them recover a little bit more? Could we sit back you always argue, could we sit back in a 5, but not necessarily just park the bus and sit back in a 5, but could we throw up Forbes maybe with a bit of pace and just leave him on the halfway line and just soak it up, let the players gather their breath and then push on? Hugely frustrating, right? Because when you've done well and you've scored a lovely, lovely goal, and they look below par, it's frustrating. Especially, it's always frustrating, but especially at home, and you sat there and you're watching it live, just to watch it slip away, and especially when it's that inevitable. Oh God, I could feel that coming, and then it eventually happens, and it's like, there we go again. That's just that little feeling in your stomach is hugely frustrating, but.
God, it's sickening, and you just like it. I'm just reliving it yet now. To be fair, because you just knew sort of once they got the equaliser that 99% they was going to be the team that went on to win it.
It's not just that. For me, it's looking up and just seeing how happy their fans are and the noise that they're making. And I'm just sat in the billy quiet directly opposite them. They're having the time of their lives. And I'm like, oh my word, there it goes again. But yeah, sickening is a good word. Yeah, massively.
Talking of away fan noise for a quick moment. They're here, they're there, they're every fucking where. Empty seats.
Is that your Geordie accent?
That's what I heard. You could hear that Geordie accent. I mean, was that a bad accent? I thought that was pretty decent.
It was all right.
Yeah, I thought it's annoying, but it was embarrassing to hear that because it's been a while since I've heard that sung by away fans at Molyneux. It's understanding when like you're languishing in like the Championship or whatever, but being a Premier League side and seeing the amount of empty seats that was there yesterday, I understand it's on the telly and a lot of people are still like in their prime calendar of the year for going away on holiday. But Jeff Shee's got a lot to answer for with the match day pricing that they're selling that this season. It's so out of touch with the community that we live in.
On that topic, Dan, can you buy a ticket? I'm going slightly off piece there, but can you buy a ticket if you're not a member? And the reason I asked is I lost my season ticket. So there was 3 people trying to buy tickets when I'd gone to renew it. This is like 11 a.m. at the Molyneux. And they asked for a ticket and they said there weren't any tickets in front of them. Do you have to become a member or to buy, you just randomly buy tickets to turn up?
No, it goes on general sale. It goes on general sale eventually, yeah. Yeah.
Do you not have to sign up to a membership when it goes on general sale?
This is what I was thinking, because it was almost like, well, why not? Why couldn't they just buy the tickets? There was a reason why, But anyway.
Go on, Jeff, I'll clarify it.
I believe so. So when I was looking at it for Chelsea game, because I had somebody asking me about tickets for that you do need to have a membership. And I think it's got sort of more of a control of the club, so they know who's buying the tickets, so that they have like membership numbers and stuff involved. It seems like a bit of a cop-out, but I think it's just more of a control of what there needs to be. And I think Dean's just put it there in the comments about needing purchase history, so that they know, say, a lot of Newcastle fans ain't buying them, because you could be a Newcastle fan or a Chelsea fan or an Arsenal fan from anywhere in the country, and you could be coming into the home end causing problems. Then it's sort of just about policing and keeping fans safe. It seems a bit of a cop-out, but it's an easy way to maintain safety and maintain the fact that they're going to Wolves fans.
Fair, but then we could have filled some of those empty seats, I suppose. Fans also being turned away, but nevertheless.
Right, I saw Matt Doherty getting a lot of pelters after the game for Harvey Barnes' worldy of a winner. You look at that sort of image on the bottom left. Harvey Barnes has picked this up sort of deep left into our half. Matt Doherty's showing him inside. But you look how deep João Gomez is there on the edge of the D. He's there a good 2 to 3 seconds before Harvey Barnes has cut in. For me, when Matt Doherty's showing Harvey Barnes inside, whether it's Tommy Doyle or João Gomez, one of them needs to be getting across to try and get a blocking on that shot. He's got so much room. Gary O'Neill talked about it after the game that they instruct the defenders as much as they can to show wingers on the outside. But for me, as much as Matt Doherty's got to take some blame, I think the centre midfielders need to be taking more responsibility in this phase of play. Ed, what was your thoughts on Barnes winner? Because the situation again, Sam Johnson can't do anything about this finish. It's another goal of the month contender. For me, which is concerning, is I think I said it in our WhatsApp yesterday. I don't feel we've got a player in our squad that scores that type of goal. As good as Cunha is, I know Bellegarde absolutely threw one in at Forest away. I don't think they're the types of players that can score that type of goal where it's that pinpoint top corner out of nowhere. I don't know what your opinion is on that, but where's the blame for you with that goal?
The blame's the complete lack of intensity. The atmosphere had gone, hadn't it, in the ground. We'd all, I think we'll come on to it a bit later, Dan. We all know what our home form is like. And Doherty warming up when Semedo got injured, everyone, including me around me, was just saying, well, that's a goal from this side. It felt inevitable. Doherty, I think you've been a little bit generous and he showed him inside. He kind of jogged after him inside, I would argue. But yeah, what should happen there, what happens, week in, week out, even down playing five-a-side, is you show your man inside for someone to come in and nab the ball. But we're sitting back, we're going back, we're almost asking him to go and have a shot because we've got a good keeper. He more than likely will be able to save it. We trust, it's going to take a worldie to go in, and he has a shot and it goes in. I think
that's a mentality issue for me, though. Like you just said there, Ed, you're allowing the shot against your keeper from that distance, but I'm not sure when you look at the sort of the way that Newcastle are laid out there. You've got two centre halves who've got the central guy. You might have the player on the far side who could have been slipped in from Harvey Barnes, but João Gomez shouldn't be slipping that far deep at that moment in the game. We should be trying to take a bit of momentum and get him on the front foot a little bit more instead of allowing him onto us.
There's no overloads there for us to worry about, especially in the middle. Someone needs to go and get the ball. Someone needs to want that ball enough. And I think the problem we have is that the player that we brought in to do that was knackered on a yellow card and on the bench. Probably Andre would have been the one snapping into the tackles, where João Gomez has got a slightly different role this year. But yeah, I think it's definitely a mentality issue that we've sat back, maybe trying to hold on to a 1-1, thinking he'll hit this into the stands. That's a minute wasted. You know what I mean? I think we needed someone to go. Like I said earlier, we needed someone to go in and want the ball and own it. And I think yesterday, in that last 20 minutes, it was only really Dawson that was doing that.
Your thoughts on Harvey Barnes' goal, Jeffo?
I think Ed summed it up perfectly, really. I mean, it's just frustrating that Doherty has jogged with him in the middle, but I think there was Doherty, yeah. But I think there is a lack of effort from the midfielders to get there. But I think the way that the game had gone and the mentality of the players that you've got there, and I think you'll get onto the actual fray. What we're talking about is having a losing mentality sometimes, kind of shown through, because really you've got young players. That João Gomez is a young man. He should really not be struggling like that. He should be making that tackle still at that point in the game, and having that intensity and having the attitude to close that down and block the shot, or at least cause him to have to push the ball wide into that wide player who's free. Because if he's done that, I don't think we complain, because that's the game being stretched. But when you allow a player to take a wonder shot out the middle of the park, completely unchallenged, you've got to hold your hands up and say, we've messed up here. We've really made a mistake, because we haven't been outplayed. We've just been out effort, outworked, out mindset. Everything there. The mentality was just poor, and it's frustrating because up until that point and up until the Shah goal going in, I think it was there, and I think that turning point then of going into our shells and saying, okay, how do we recover from this? How do we stay in the game? And I think Ed said it was about keeping a point. That's not the way we should be thinking. We're playing at Molineux. This should be a fortress. A home ground should always be a place where you win games and you win a majority of your games of a season. And to have such a situation at home where we lose is so frustrating, because to come back to what Tom says earlier about having a reason to want to spend your money and have a season ticket, losing games is exactly the reason not to have one. And that's why we've not got fans out at the moment, and that's why the Geordies are singing about empty seats, because there is no reason for fans to be there at the moment, because we're not winning enough games and we're not getting the points and the performances to justify having sellout crowds.
I agree. Do you feel, in sort of what Ed touched on earlier, Tom, is that there's a lack of belief in the squad as well as the stands now? Because I think Ed mentioned earlier, around the sort of 60th minute mark, the atmosphere did go a bit flat. I think the nervousness seemed to sort of fall upon the pitch. Obviously, the legs are tired, but where's the fan base spurring this team on when you can see that we've got a bit of a mountain to climb, because there was adversity there, but where was the support from the stands yesterday?
Fair point. Defoe alluded to it, creating a fortress, and I do think that comes from the fans. However, I think fans react to what they're seeing and what they feel, and it's more about going by gut instinct. And we've said previously that once they scored that goal, it was almost felt inevitable. So without realising it, we're probably all sat there waiting for that second goal to eventually happen, and that atmosphere from the players, and you get that feeling, and then the fans think it, and it's just kind of like, it's kind of that chicken and the egg, like which one is it? I think it just breeds, whether we ran out of steam, whether we ran out of gas, whether they were just up in the ante. But they had, can you fault our desire? No, I don't think you can. Can you fault our desire to really see that game out, and as much as Newcastle wanted to win it? I think that's ultimately where it came from. It was an absolute wonder strike. If you compare it, to the Share goal, you can understand that, why when the centre half's having a pop shot and it deflects off your guy's head, that those things can happen. But how do you react to that? What is the next step? You're at home, right? Okay, we were winning, we've gone back. These are no great shakes. What do we do now? But it was all, as we said, just a little bit lethargic. It was ultimately where it comes from. But can you blame the fans? It'd be good to, ultimately, it'd be nice to rally around and start going for it. But I'll be honest, I was sat there in silence, almost waiting for what I felt like was a ticking time bomb, just for them to celebrate me, to have this feeling all over again. And then lo and behold, it happens, right? So I think the biggest challenge now is, and whether we'll touch on it with Lemina mentioned the mentality, I think that's it. But how do you change that mentality? That's tough. That comes from self-belief, and that's belief in the players with their own ability, the belief in the players with the system, the belief with the players at different periods of the game, because you will always be under the cosh of the Premiership. It's how you see those out. There's even times where Man City and Arsenal have to defend for periods of the game against other teams. But how do you see those periods out, and how do we react? We just seem like when we're put to the sword a little bit, we crumble. We're not quite Everton-esque with what they've been doing recently, but it's that kind of, that little spiral that once it starts, it just feels like we're just going down that slippery slope, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I agree. We've sort of talked about it without really delving into it too much, Ed. But do you think this squad's got a bit of a fitness problem, having, had that pre-season in America? I think Gary O'Neill mentioned that the pre-season tour didn't go as planned as he would have liked to have been, with all the excess travelling that the team had to do from Miami, where they were based, to playing in Fort Lauderdale, and then having to travel back. And maybe fitness is an issue, but maybe, I don't know, maybe it's like a confidence. But do you think fitness could be an issue with this squad?
I think fitness has been an issue with this squad for a good while, hasn't it? We had that with Bruno Lage, didn't we? That we die out of games, and this run is looking very similar to how we were under him. I don't know. We're a long way away now from the America tour, and they should be up and running. We had the last game after the international break as well, so I don't know if we can argue that fitness is an issue when we were the last possible game of the week. We shouldn't be. They shouldn't be. If there is a fitness issue, then there shouldn't be, in my opinion. I'm not one of these people that says they get paid enough, they should run hard. That's not the way the human body works, is it? But we shouldn't be having. We shouldn't still be talking about fitness issues. For example, Ryan Aït-Nouri started to cramp up again. We know 2 seasons ago he could barely get past 70 minutes. We don't need to go back down that route now because we don't have a left back to come on for him, as we saw. But we shouldn't be having fitness issues. If pre-season wasn't where it should be, then I don't know what to say. We're 5 games, 6 games into the season. They should be up and running now, regardless of the international break.
Agree with that, Jeffo. Obviously, Nelson Semedo also came off injury. He had a bit of cramp yesterday. He came back late from the Euros. Didn't really have a full season and a full pre-season in America. Andre's still probably getting used to the actual intensity of the Premier League on the back of flying back from Brazil on Thursday. Do you think fitness is an issue, or am I digging too deep here?
I don't think you're digging that deep, to be honest. I think you don't need to look past it to see the way that we have died out in games this season so far. I think talking about the America Tour didn't go as planned, as they said. The weather had a massive aspect in it. The weather, when we were over there, was horrendous. It was stop-starting a lot of training sessions, and the travel from Miami base up to Jacksonville or Fort Lauderdale, it's a long way. And if you don't realize how far it is, go and look on a map. It is a long, long way. These are like playing the longest Premier League getaway days and trying to train in between at high intensive levels. It's not perfect. And with that being said, you've got players like you said, Nelson Semedo, who's barely played any minutes, and they're playing in crucial roles and crucial parts of the team. Where you can concede a lot of chances, and players who are just coming into it and have barely got any minutes. Carlos Forbes, he's barely played anything with the side. He's trying to come on and change the game. Andre, he's barely played minutes. He's playing the most important part of that team. He's starting the attacks. He's the one who's stopping everything that Newcastle are doing. So we, as a team, we look like we're 2-3 weeks away from being fully fit. And I think, as Ed says, it's a shit situation to be. It's a horrendous situation to be, and we shouldn't be there as a team. And you can't make excuses for it. But we have to understand that now the hard work and the graft really has to go in, and they've got to get as many minutes in legs as possible. And that's why the game now and going through in the League Cup, and having Brighton in the next round is very important, because now you've got the likes of Pedro Lima can get a lot of minutes. Carlos Forbes needs minutes because he's going to be important to the side, and getting people like Guedes big minutes as well, because you need the subs to change it.
Rodrigo Gomez is a player I'm looking at Wednesday who needs to be trying to put in a performance to try and get back in that starting lineup come this weekend against Villa. There's a few players I think early in the comment section saying why did we not let Hwang Yu-Chan go to Marseille for £20 million? A mystery to me, offers very little. Why are we bringing him on when Forbes would have done a better job? Even Guedes would have had more of an impact coming on early. I don't feel like any of those 3 players did themselves any favours when they came on. I thought Forbes, like you mentioned, he was being asked to do a lot in the small amount of minutes that he was given. I thought the substitutions were a bit peculiar, to be honest. I didn't understand Strand Larsen being brought off unless he's they'd seen that he was tiring on the pitch, having travelled back from Norwegian duty last week, but chasing the game and needing a focal point up front. I thought it was, if I'm really going to go in on Gary, I thought it was embarrassing that Craig Dawson was being thrown up front in those closing minutes, because whether Strand Larsen was coming close to the red zone or whatever, I thought taking off your number 9 when you're chasing the game was ridiculous, Tom.
Agreed. I don't think whether it's the quality of the I can't blame the substitutions because that's been too harsh on the players. I think a lot of the substitutions this season have been a little. I don't remember a moment. Correct me, guys, if I'm wrong, where we've made a substitution and I thought that's had a really good impact and changes for the better. It almost feels like a hit and hope. Like let's just throw that on and let's just fingers crossed. Let's forward. Let's throw Pedence on. Let's throw Guedes on, and let's just have a go and see if that makes a difference. And now it's like, right then. Go on, Huang, you have a go. Let's throw Forbes on for a few minutes. I don't know. It didn't seem like much had changed, much structure. It's just throwing new people on in positions that probably aren't their most ideal. And just as you've just probably hit the nail on the head as well, throwing Craig Dawson up front and just pumping up some long balls just seems, time and time again, the amount of times in the Premiership, even when there's a minute left with a minute to go, and you're still getting the ball out wide and being calm and utilising it, because you do in the Premiership with 1 or 2 minutes, you can create a really, really good opportunity. They're going to get nervous. It's just about being patient. That hit and hope ball, and just fingers crossed, it'll probably work 1 times out of 100, even if you even that. It just that there's no way we've trained for that. That's literally just sporadic. Let's just try this. Nothing else seems to be working, and that's just, as we say, we don't go 2-in on Gary O'Neill yet. But that doesn't breed confidence. When you're watching it, and if that lacks confidence, are the players confident in what they're doing? And Huang's performances as well. That chap that just dropped that comment, he's come on and offered absolutely nothing at any point. And there's something in as a player, and there's something in there as a finisher. Whether he's checked out mentally or not, I mean, who knows? But to throw him on and consistently keep bringing him on, and then nothing, he offers absolutely nothing. We just seem to go backwards. There's got to be something that we can do with these players, because they're not terrible footballers, and they might not be. We haven't got the strength of depth that Newcastle have, but there's still a way. There's still an ability to get something out of them. And I think taking Strand Larson on, even if he's really tired, just say to him, don't move, just stay up there. Let's just get some players in and around you, and let's just keep pinging the ball to you and create some havoc in the box. It's going to be a better option, surely. I'm no football manager, but that just seems a more sensible approach than whacking Craig Dawson on for a few minutes up front and then just trying to the players not around him and too far out. It just seems like schoolboy football.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, don't get me wrong, Craig Dawson won a couple of decent headers in their boxes. The game sort of petered there. I think Cunha had a chance pretty much late into the game. And as much as we've been negative, I'm hoping we've put together a show which is very reasonable based on what we saw over the 90 minutes yesterday. But I mean, Cunha had a chance late in the game. Nick Pope made another decent save. You look back over the 90 minutes, obviously Lemina puts us 1-0 up. He has a chance on the edge of the box, which he scuffs wide of his left foot. Strand Larson hits the post. He has that header, which Nick Pope says. Cunha has an effort that Nick Pope makes a decent save with the front post. You're looking at a side. We've played 3 teams in the first 4 games, which for me, Newcastle, Chelsea and Arsenal will finish top 6 this season. And if we're going to be realistic, as much as we had optimism going into the season, we're not, like whoever said it, I think it might have been Tom, we're not throwing punches at teams in the top 6 this season. We need to be a bit more reasonable and getting the points where we're expected to. A point away at Forest wasn't a bad result. I think a lot of people would have wanted us to get the win, but a point away at Forest isn't a bad point on the road. Mentioned it earlier, Mario Lemina said after the game, on conceding the unfortunate goal, Sam Johnson didn't have much chance of either goal, and sometimes they can go like that. Newcastle had the luck in the second half and we didn't. We still had chances to score, but we didn't. We need to change this losing mentality now and get back to work. That was a concerning line for me, Jeff. I was Lemina coming out with, there is a losing mentality within the dressing room. I think it's a bit frustrating that we have to account for the back end of last season's results with this season, but you can't deny it. We're in a really bad run of form at the moment. I think it was Alex Richards on Twitter saying Wolves have lost more home games in 2024 than any other Premier League club with 8. No team has lost more Premier League games this calendar year than Wolves, who have lost 13. And this is Wolves' joint worst start to a Premier League season since our first season in the Premier League under Dave Jones. We've got to stay reasonable with 4 games in. we've got some good players. I think there's some really poor sides left in this division. I heard there was people in a few rows in front of me in the South Bank who were calling us relegation fodder, and for me, it's unfathomable and ridiculous to have that mindset at the moment. But the run that we on is the run that we are on is concerning.
I think bringing the run up is crucial as well, because it is almost now at the point of stopping the rot. And what I hope with Lemina, one we said was it was kind of a thing that's lost in translation, and that the losing mentality is more focused on that run of results, and the fact that the players have a fight and they want to change that and to get a positive result. And I mean, looking at the way that the games have gone this season, I think we are just probably one positive result and one win away from starting a little run up, and because you can see what we're doing is going in the right direction.
You mentioned it there. Sorry to jump in. You
course.
mentioned it. Someone else mentioned it earlier that there is a bit of an air of Bruno Lage's end with the run that we're currently on, but you can't question this team's efforts and intensity at the moment. I think their intensity ran dry yesterday, but the efforts is still clear to see for me with this team. I don't feel there's any question that they're not playing for the manager or anything like that.
I think they have parallels in terms of the actual events and the way that they've happened. But I think if you actually compare the two, that they're light years apart. The team that's been built and the ideologies and the ideas that have been put out by Gary O'Neill and what we want to achieve are just so light years ahead of what Bruno Lage was doing in terms of the side and the football that was being played. And we see with the goals that we're scoring and just down to that basic thing is creating chances and scoring goals is something that Bruno Lage is really struggling with. And I think now it's about building and having these positive moments. And you see, and I've said it throughout this show countless times now, is that we've improved game on game on game. And it is just now, just that little light switch moment, that little eureka moment where we get a result, hopefully this weekend, because that will amplify tenfold because of it being Villa. And having that result now is the thing that will kick this team on. It'll give them that little bit of a skip in the step, a little bit of pep, just to say, okay, we can carry on and we believe in what we're doing. And that's kind of, we need that now. And that it needs to come in the next couple of games, because if we start chasing, more and more people will go against O'Neill, and we don't want that, because O'Neill is and will be the perfect man for Wolves this season. I don't doubt that. And if I'm wrong on that, I put my head out there and say it now. But I don't think I'm wrong, because I think what we're seeing and what he wants to achieve and what he's doing with the club is the right way of doing it. And I believe in what he can do and what he can achieve.
Have you still got faith that Gary can turn this run into a positive, Tom, or could a heavy defeat at Villa start to open up cracks?
I like what Jaffe says, because I think he comes across, and I think that's the kind of leader and person you want at the front of the club. I always remember seeing something about Ancelotti, and you've got, the two top, his adaptability as a manager is, you've either got managers that this is the way we play, and they have to buy specific players to fit their system, end of. If they don't, they're out, doesn't matter who it is. Or the manager adapts to the players that I've got. The question mark that I've got looming over my head was, why did we have such good periods and we've gone so far what appears to be falling off the edge of a cliff with a run of results? He's had time now. He's had a season. He's had a pre-season. He's done better without having a pre-season than he's had with a pre-season. Yes, he's had to deal with Jeff Shee and all that, so more than understandable. But I'm just trying to see what the system is and the confidence from the system, if that makes sense. And is that there? That's probably the question mark. The substitutions, that's still a little bit of question mark, because we've always become weaker. Are they better players? But we do see managers that have weaker players. Again, I know it's not directly comparable, but Atletico Madrid, they've never had the players in the stand. They've got one or two, but they know what they're good at. They're well drilled. They do it week in, week out. They play the dark arts. And that's where everybody knows exactly what they're going to be doing. If they don't, you're out. You don't play again, end of. Do we have that consistency where everybody knows what they're doing? It just seems a little bit of an air of uncertainty. And uncertainty breeds from the top. So whether there's uncertainty at the board level, which then trickles down to Gary O'Neill, I don't know. Do I hope he brings it round? Absolutely. You just pulled up down the run of fixtures that's coming up with Villa, Liverpool, Brentford, and City. Now you've got to look, and again, we keep saying, well, we've got this tough run, and we'll turn it around. But how long does a tough run go for? This is the Premier League, the greatest world. That do we consider staying above the top three a successful season for Wolverhampton Wanderers? Maybe I've just been too optimistic, and that's not where we should be. I think we should be minimum. We should be a mid-table team. If we go to Villa, I can't see us beating Villa. Again, not to be too negative, but Liverpool and City, well, come on, they're very tough games. And Brentford away, that's no easy task. So they are super, super hard fixtures. And we've got to turn it around. So we have to, within those games, or we have to create performances that breeds that little bit of hope. Maybe Newcastle up to 60 minutes. Let's take that on to 70 minutes, the game after 80 minutes. That's where the hope is. Do I think he'll be the right man and turn it around? I do. I do think he'll be successful. And I don't think we need to kind of go, jump and the people saying that relegation fodder. No, but it is very, very concerning. And he has had time and there's a lot of uncertainty. That's where it's making me okay.
Where you're sitting with Gary O'Neill at the moment, Ed. Obviously, the run that we're on is concerning. I'm discarding last season, especially that back end when we had basically newborns playing up front. It's you look at that league table, it's similar to the Championship at the moment. You win 2 games on the bench, you top off. You lose 2 games, you're looking over your shoulder at the relegation zone.
Yeah, the league table means jack, doesn't it, for the first couple of months? I think the problem we've got is we're in the middle of another mini transition, but we're having to watch it on the pitch. Gary O'Neill had players coming in late again. We weren't going to spend any money, then we found some money for Andre. The problem we're having is we're also for me, I think we're looking at this as we're the only team going through it when we're not. Crystal Palace are having to adapt and change because they've lost a few of key players. So have Fulham, so have Bournemouth, so have Brentford. And they got 1 win or a couple of extra results, and they're in the middle of the table right now.
And they've had very, very more favourable fixtures than we've had.
Yeah, and we've had a deflected goal going off someone's head, and then everyone's head's dropped. And we've sucked in the second goal ourselves, you could argue, by sitting back the way we have. I think sometimes we need to take a step back and realise that we're in the middle of a transition, and we are a team of our level where we know for a fact within 2 or 3 seasons we'll make a huge profit on Andre, we'll make a huge profit on Joao Gomez, and we'll start again. And the reason we didn't let Hwang Hee-chan go, to answer Earl's question from earlier in the comments, is if we let him go, then we don't have a second striker. He's our backup centre forward. So that's the situation we're in right now, isn't it? And we're taking punts on people like Guedes, who we couldn't sell. We need to try and play him. We're taking a punt on Forbes, who some people think looks like a competition winner. Some people think he's got potential. We don't know anything about these players yet. The problem we're having is we're watching another mini evolution of this team on the pitch because we couldn't get it all done before the transfer window ended. That's the problem we're seeing right now. Is we're still seeing teething problems that we wanted to sort out in Jacksonville.
I'm just going to ask you one quick question, Jeff, because we're nearly sort of airing 20 in this episode. I understand the reasoning and the sort of the opportunity was there to sign Andre, but the fact that Max Kilman left in June and we didn't bring in a centre off this summer, and then the summer managed to find 20+ million to bring in Andre, is that just another indication of a disconnect between boardroom and Matt Hobbs?
I think there is definitely a sort of disconnect there when it comes to certain transfers and understanding the needs of the team. But that is also something that comes at the door of Gary O'Neill. I genuinely believe that he believed that Toti Gomez and Mosquera could be a viable partnership in that Premier League starting that season. We've gone through it. We proved that that's not the case. And to keep it brief, I think it's a failure on Gary O'Neill by not identifying the issues that we have with the squad and the other one is Hobbs for not bringing in and not putting enough pressure on GFC and the board to bring in a centre half. I think it's a complete cluster, as it were, from all sides to not identify that area and bring somebody in.
I agree, and I think we're going to end the show on that. That Wolves lost the game yesterday, 2-1 at home to Newcastle. Gary O'Neill's comments before we actually leave were, everyone's desperate for that first win, of course, but that was close to being our best today. That some people will raise their eyebrows at that last comment. I know I did when I said it, when I heard it. There's a few little bits that we can tidy up on, but we come up against a side who have spent an awful lot of money and were in the Champions League last season, and we didn't look a lesser side. For me, excluding that second half at home to Chelsea, we've been competitive in every game this season. We go to Brighton on Wednesday, hoping to turn the corner with some of the fringe players, hopefully putting in a performance that can give Gary O'Neill some decisions to make come the Villa game on Saturday. But it's way too early to be considering this Wolves side relegation fodder. There's a lot of poor teams in this Premier League. We've still got some really good forward players, midfield and defensive players at our disposal, which come game week 38, I feel we've got enough to actually do well this season, whether it's a top half finish or not. We've got to take into consideration that we still haven't spent a lot of as a club. As clubs with wage salaries way bigger than what we're paying out. Until this ownership is willing to invest again, like they previously were, we're going to have to accept that we're in a group of teams similar to Brentford, Crystal Palace, Fulham, possibly West Ham this season, where we need to be careful that we don't overestimate what this team can do whilst not putting too much pressure on this team to deliver against the bigger teams, which we've done previously. We need to start getting points on the board. Performances may need to take a back seat to results from now on, but come rain or snow, we'll be there supporting. So thanks for joining myself, Tom, Jeffo and Ed on tonight's Wolves Fancast. Be sure to follow us at Wolves Fancast across all social media. Make sure you have a go at our FC quiz app, which you can find at the website and the app on the Google Store or the Apple Store, fcquiz.app. Enjoy the rest of your week. We may be doing a live watch along for the Brighton game on Wednesday. If not, we'll be back on Friday to preview the away fixture to our social media rivals, Aston Villa. Good night. God bless. Good morning. Safe journey to work. See you later.